If you are facing divorce, you may be facing one of the most common fears, and that is financial stability. It's not unusual for people to wonder after we divide up all the assets, how in the world are they going to make it work? This can be especially true if you were not the primary income earner in your marriage. The good news is that for most families, there is a way to make it work. My guest here today is Christy Gammill, and she's dedicated the past 26 years of her professional career helping people find a way to balance the assets and liabilities and to make it work. Christy is a Certified Divorce Financial Analyst, and she's also a principal with CBG Wealth Management. She's here today to talk with us about what people need to know when it comes to finances and divorce. Christy, thank you so much for taking time to be here.
Jennifer, thank you for having me on the Jennifer Hargrave Show. My pleasure.
As we start our conversation today, I just want to ask you, in your experience, what really is the most common concern or worry that people have about their finances in a divorce context?
I will say that the universal concern that people have is overcoming their fear. They're paralyzed by their financial fear. There's fear of not only the relationship that is, crumbled after 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, even 50 years we've seen in today's great divorces that have arisen the past decade plus, is overcoming their financial fear. And everyone has it. I haven't had a client that is uber wealthy that hasn't had it, to a client who has come in and maybe not has so much. And so, for example, you may have a high income earning or high wage earning spouse, and they've accumulated wealth over the years. And the less financially sophisticated party or the stay-at-home spouse is so fearful that they don't know how much money they have. They don't know what it means. They don't know how to put it all together. They've never handled the bills or the investments, and they're shameful oftentimes, unnecessarily, but it's how they feel. And we really try to understand the clients and help them through that, and understand what is their specific fear. So that spouse is concerned that not only are they going to be able to maintain the current lifestyle or provide for the kids, they're sometimes fearful that they may have to go back to work, and they've been out of the workforce for a very long time, decades, if they ever went into it to begin with. So how am I going to make it? There's the flip side of that, where you do have the person who was making the money may feel that they earned all of the retirement savings, that they earned all of the stock options, and there's fear of letting go. There's fear of sharing because they feel it's all theirs. There's also fear of liquidity. If you've got a real estate developer who may have, tens or hundreds of millions of dollars in investment properties, they may not be liquid to divide the assets and pay off the other spouse. So there's fear of, how am I going to make this work, even when people want to work together? There's also a money shame that comes into play for feeling ignorant. I can't tell you how many times a client comes into my office scared to death, and they may have more than enough, and then I help them define what that is, but literally scared that they don't have enough, and they have money shame that they should have been more involved in the finances.
I think you're touching on something that I certainly see as well, and frankly, personally have felt, was the embarrassment to ask questions. If there are, there's different types of assets, different types of, holdings, even language like liquidity. These can all be things that are really can be overwhelming for somebody who hasn't, been in the world of helping to manage the household finances. Where do you even start to help to kind of unpack some of that?
Well, it's first of all working to get the client comfortable, letting them know that they with their financial advisor, hiring myself, hiring you as a lawyer, may need a mental health professional, having a team of advisors they trust to let them know, first of all, we're going to have a team to help you go through this together, and you're not alone. Reassuring them that we're going to help them understand what's important to them, and we're going to get to the bottom of this, and we will find a solution. And to your point of this terminology of what does liquidity mean, it means that, we all know what cash in the bank is or a checking account is, maybe not these days for the millennials, but, spendable money is money that you can spend and use for your living expenses, your mortgage, your groceries, your vacations, your cars, private school, whatever it may be that's important to you. And liquidity means, do you have access to funds that are readily available today? Whereas we talked about maybe the real estate developer may have a lot of money in these investments, but they can't necessarily access cash to make it liquid and so you can live on it. And so we reassure the clients that we're going to help work together to find these solutions so that you can have access to funds. And my goal is when somebody comes in the office after the first meeting that they say, I feel better. I feel better since I've come here. And so that's really to get a goal, to get our clients comfortable, to let them know they're going to be okay. And we're going to help them figure this out.
And I always want to tell people, like, it's okay if you don't know. I mean, that's why we hire professionals. That's why we have experts, is because we don't have to know everything. You don't have to pretend like you know everything. If you need to call a timeout and ask questions and go over that again, exactly how am I going to pay the bills? When we have a balance sheet that may show, hundreds of millions of dollars, but how am I actually going to pay my bill?
Right.
Like, where's that going to come from? It's okay to ask questions.
Absolutely.
What do you find? Well, no, let me just ask you, in your role as the financial advisor in divorce, how do you help people? Kind of walk us through the steps of how you help people prepare for life after divorce.
Well, it goes back to, let's understand what the resources are for assets as well as potential liabilities. In a dream scenario, maybe you don't have any liabilities and you just have assets. That's very rarely the case. But how do you find what this liquid bucket of money is, or the time frame in which that money's become liquid? For example, it might not be time for your retirement funds to be accessed because you're not 60 years old or 59 and a half. We stage the money in different places so that they have access to it. Really understanding what's important to our clients. What are their money values, their family values? How do they spend their time? How do they spend their money? And so preparing for after divorce, we've gone through this process and asked these soft questions during the process, saying that, X amount of money is what you're going to receive at the end of this divorce, or it's going to be your portion, whatever that percentage division is. And it ends up being, and you may have to make choices. You may not have to make choices. But if it's, a client will often say, I would rather have, a nicer house than to, be able to do frivolous things and go, shopping for, handbags or, vacations. Although I encourage people to take vacations. They're very important. I love to travel and try to infuse that to people who are interested in travel as well. So we understand their values and we create a financial plan, Jennifer. And so as we talk about maybe, and this could be either spouse, it's more often than not, I would say, 75 to 80% of the people do not have a budget that they know what it is on a spreadsheet when they come in, either spouse. And so help them really understand. I have conversations with them. I can look at the electric bills. We can project the property taxes and the mortgage, but they talk to me about their lifestyle and we get a guesstimate of what we think that's going to cost, because having a client create a spreadsheet for their expenses, talk about shut down. They don't want to do it.
No, exactly. And I think there can be a whole lot of shame in that as well, especially if money was something that was fought over in the marriage. You can be bringing all of those stories about money, into your life. And I think this is a real opportunity to hit the reset button, because one of the great benefits of divorce is you get to take over control and really begin to build, and live life according to your values.
You just said that. Control. Be in control of your own financial destiny with your core values. Hit the reset button, and the shame that may be in, spending here. And just like a doctor, you've got to come clean with your doctor and tell me how it's been, where do you want to go, and do a diagnostics. Hit the reset button. Now we're going to move forward and figure out what your resources are for assets, liabilities, income earning ability, potential inheritances, access to a trust. What are the potential resources? What are the expenses? And we help map a financial plan so that they know that their investments are going to earn X amount of money. Here's the other resources. And then they literally will, if they're in disbursement mode or income mode now, which means that they are in portfolio dependent and need to live off their cash investments today, that they pretty much know that this is the amount of money that comes into my account each month. It's deposited as if it was a paycheck. And the goal is to get that client living like that. I don't really like the word budget, but living within their means that we've established will work for them. And then knowing that they can do that, and there's a system, I feel, that really creates comfort. And it's designed by them, and they're in complete control. as you referenced.
And it's not like then, you're trading your spouse for a financial planner who's not going to be the boss of you.
No.
I mean, it is really creating, and that's where I've seen the light bulb go off for so many of my clients, is when they really reconnect with some of the things they were passionate about before the marriage. Maybe it is travel. Maybe they had hobbies that they love to do, or, they have friends and family they haven't seen for a while. And suddenly when they begin to construct their life around what's important to them, you just see this whole dramatic shift. But it's important to know that working with a financial planner doesn't mean you're handing over control to somebody else.
No, you're exactly right. And you bring a great point. I oftentimes hear my clients say that they now feel confident in themselves, and they never thought they could do it, because I always share with them, this is their process, their plan. I teach, I educate, I support, and advise, but it's ultimately their life, their decisions, and the freedom that they have and the empowering that does. It's remarkable to see how satisfying that is for many clients when they realize that they can do it. They have not been necessarily historically financial savvy. You don't have to have savvy to be smart, and just to be confident that you're the one in control making these decisions. Reconnecting in hobbies or friendships or activities is something that is really special to live life the way they want to. And the reset button, as you said, can be a real blessing.
It really can. And so often we see people at the, one of the worst times in their life when they're just beginning the divorce process. And you see them begin to kind of emerge and come out the other side.
Yes.
And go on and live an amazing life.
Yes.
And that happens because they're supported by a team of people who, can help support their dreams happening.
That's exactly right.
You and I have had occasion to do collaborative cases together.
We have.
And so I did want
to
to talk to you a little bit about the role of a financial neutral in the collaborative divorce process, maybe how that differs from when you're working as a financial advisor for just one party.
Okay, sure. So yes, we have had a handful or more of collaborative cases over the past decade plus. And the role of a financial neutral versus a financial advisor in a collaborative case is that they're really listening to what's important to each party. But the primary role at the beginning of the case is to gather the information from both parties, gather the financial information, gather the expenses, the credit cards, the tax returns, the investment statements, the mortgage balance, gather, the company benefits book, gather the information, put it into a portal so it's accessible by both parties, and then help identify what is there. And I need to understand it, or the financial neutral that is working in the case needs to understand it and work through maybe teams of people in HR or the CFO of privately owned companies to understand it, and get the attorneys to understand what the assets and liabilities are there, and then educate the clients on what assets and liabilities are there. And maybe one of the clients knows what it is. They're privately held business, and they know and can explain some things. So really just gathering information and being transparent to kind of take down the walls of distrust and let them know that I'm here to bring out the information and share it, so that it's to give them a comfort that everybody is on the same page, we're on equal turf, and we're sharing the information to discuss what's there. And then we work as a team in usually a 6-person meeting with each person's attorney, a mental health professional, myself, and the clients. And then we're talking about the mental health professionals, talking about what's important to them. And it may be the kids, it may be remaining a friendship with the spouse or cordial relationship to co-parent moving forward. And then it gets into the money. And, what are your fears? What are your goals? What are your interests? And so when we hear the clients do that, we try to help them understand what's there and share all the information about what their financial needs are, what the resources are. We build, a spreadsheet of the assets and liability, and then we work together to option build with each party and their lawyer, and share those options, thinking this is, kind of my option dream scenario number 1 and number 2. And I work with that team and each of those clients and their lawyers to help them build those options. And then we share them with the other party.
And one of the things that I love about working with you and having the financial neutral is really having the point person to be able to ask questions. So where my client might be a little embarrassed or shy or not know and not want to admit that in front of a whole team, in working with you, you can kind of help draw out what those questions are and make sure we're getting questions answered so people know and understand when it comes time to begin evaluating the options that they what they're choosing and how it's going to work for them.
Absolutely. I think education is key, is really, taking down that fear, and both sides usually have it, whatever it is. It may be fear of losing control, losing the relationship, understanding what is important to each party, and really, you kind of feel like a mediator in my role. You can absolutely feel tugged, or like a parent with fighting kids, because, I'm not here to be manipulated to figure out, get each of you what you want. I will listen and then say, okay. And then that's when you have that team call and say, all right, I've got some children that need to be under control. And let's get everybody back on target with the goals, objectives, and interest, and help, adult and go through this process.
And it really is, when we're working at it in the collaborative process, we're able to really, everybody brings their problem solving skills to the table, and we're able to come up with really creative solutions that are unique for that family.
Absolutely. And whereas, the next part of that is, how does that differ from being an advocate, where I may be hired by one spouse only versus working with the team and hired jointly, is I'm then an advocate for my client. And so, good practice is always to be transparent and forthcoming with information that's necessary to be shared versus non-disclosing information, but really advocating for what my client needs. And I'm going to push harder as an advocate than as a neutral. It's, here's the information and how do we negotiate and get there. I'm going to be an advocate for my client, and then go on to, continue to work with them in the post-life, afterlife of saying their financial advisor, and, managing their investments with them and helping them, just make those decisions throughout their life.
Because that is one of the things about collaborative is you don't get to continue on then as a financial advisor for either party, right?
That is the
general
consensus, because it could be perceived as a conflict. That
right.
Wait, okay, hold on. If I do this, I've got the money making spouse. I want to work with them, or whatever the perception is the goal. It certainly happens and can be agreed upon, but the general standard is that that you don't want the financial professional mental health to have certain roles beyond.
Right. But you want them to have a vested interest in the outcome of the case. And really protecting that neutrality for the neutrals is really, it's important and a key feature, I think, that helps benefit clients. What are some unique situations where you've seen the collaborative divorce process really benefit people that you've worked with?
I think that the team is really important. I think the team aspect, that you've got this team of people looking out for your family now and the family you're going to have beyond, is one of the key aspects. Is the transparency and the team of support that you have, to me, are two of the strongest aspects of collaborative to help people.
And it's not that your lawyer isn't an advocate, because your lawyer, we still are advocating for our clients. But I will tell you, you bring a whole different energy into the room when the goal is to solve the problem, and it's not to beat the other side up.
Yes, and it's to try to hear what's important to each party and to get there together. And really, I think it's about that post-divorce relationship, that most people have children, and the smoother that they can interact with each other, with the children around, and whether they're young children, adult children. It's just really important to have that. It minimizes the conflict to the extent possible.
One thing I want to ask you is, we're talking about people being embarrassed or kind of feeling shame, and I think that sometimes people don't know, well, do I have enough money to hire a financial advisor? Does this make sense? What are some general guidelines that people should consider when determining whether or not it's time to hire a financial advisor?
Well, I think that most people can't afford not to hire a financial advisor, and that the embedded cost in a financial advisor it should be transparent. It is minimal. It is minimal to do it yourself because there's so many embedded fees at, go to XYZ platform and then you're in their funds and they have these fees. The cost is minimal. I think what's important in deciding to have a financial advisor, make sure that you're a fit for that financial advisor's clientele. The financial advisor may have, a minimum to meet. Make sure that you're in the range. Make sure that you're not at the bottom of that range necessarily, or that you're going to get the attention that you need, and understand, what services are you getting in addition to managing the money. Usually financial advisors are paid, unlike attorneys or CPAs during a divorce, by the hour. They're paid based on a percentage of the assets under management or percentage of the net worth, whatever is agreed upon behind them. And the incremental value of avoiding mistakes they might otherwise make is incredible by having financial advice. And it's just somebody that, and the client can decide what level of advice they want. You go to a personal coach and you decide that, for, physical aspects, how much training do you want? I'll go to one, but don't dig into what I'm eating. I know what to eat. I know what not to eat, but I just want you for this. And so you got to see if what your needs are works with what that financial advisor does. And do they step outside of, what their traditional system may be? For example, it may be, hey, I want to call you every time I want to buy a car or I want to buy a second home. I hope that people call me for those kinds of things. Every time you want to go to Neiman Marcus or Lover's Lane, you don't need to call me. It's just, are you living within that monthly amount that we decided worked within your, financial future goals to keep you financially secure? So most people can't afford, once you have any kind of wealth, not to. And if you go to an established financial advisor, there's going to be layers of people on teams that may work with the children. Like, for example, our team, we have advisors that work with my clients' children who are up and coming. They just got out of college and, they're in the tech industry, they're making money. And so looking for somebody that maybe has a team may benefit you more, or you may like the one man or woman shop. It really is just depending. And I say, go interview 2 or 3 people and go with your intuition in terms of who is a fit for you, and see if you connect. See if you connect with your attorney when you're shopping for an attorney. See if there's a connection and that you really just find trust in that person and understand that what they're going to do for you, and that you're not signing up for the rest of your life. It's here's how we work, and they've got to do a good job to keep you on as a client and see the value added that you're providing.
Absolutely. And I think especially during times like this, when things are rather volatile and there's, a lot of fear out there in the market, to have somebody who can really hold your hand and guide you through that process is really helpful.
Absolutely. To keep people in their seats when it seems like the plane is about to crash. And so it's a bumpy ride and it's staying the course. And so really understanding the fears, it doesn't matter, whatever someone may say on the beginning of, starting to, for many clients, like let's say post-divorce, they've never even understood what, a portfolio means. And without getting into all of those details, it's our role to understand what their level of experience is and expertise and put it together. And at some point there's education, there has to be trust in the process. Absolutely. And so that really being there for our clients in these very turbulent times is important. And, we're here to handhold and to listen to them, their fears and concerns, and to reassure them that financial plan, that graph that shows you, hey, and this is baked into all of these things, is our Monte Carlo, 1,000 probability scenarios, and this is one of those downturns. We've already accounted for that in your plan, and to rest assured, and it just helps feel so much better to go back to the plan. This was included in the plan. We knew that this was going to happen. It's long term. So just to really help our clients stay in their seats in turbulent times and reassure them that it's not going to impact our long-term goals because it's already been accounted for. We know that the ride isn't always smooth.
That's great. You've worked with so many people, different walks of life, different socioeconomic situations across the board. What message of hope do you have for somebody today who's, maybe just in that beginning stage and feeling the overwhelming fear?
I would say consult and hire a lawyer that you trust as soon as possible. Okay, get a team going as soon as possible, and get the information out there as soon as possible, and get educated as soon as possible. No decisions, just get educated as soon as possible. If you do the homework and do that up front, the sooner we can provide peace and kind of say, here's your worst outcome. You're going to be okay. You're not going to be living on the streets, and it's just going to be okay. And we'll work together to make your life, to help you decide how to make your life and your financial picture look lovely, and pick up those development and those interests. And you will be on the other side of this, and your hand will be held along the way. And your team can be there after you, to whatever extent that you'd like to have your team here after this is all over.
Christy, I want to thank you for taking time to come and just sit with me today and help provide some valuable insight into how a financial advisor can really help somebody in the divorce process.
Well, the pleasure is mine. You're a class act attorney to work with. So thank you for having me.
Well, thank you, Christy. If you want to learn more about Christy Gammill, we're going to include a link to her website so you can connect with her. And I hope you'll follow up and schedule a meeting. And we hope that if you've enjoyed our podcast today, that you'll hit subscribe and continue to follow us as we seek to provide valuable information for people who are facing one of life's biggest transitions, that being divorce. Thank you so much.